Your ISO 9001 audit is next week, and right now you're probably frantic fixing typos, dating documents, and filling out missing forms. But stop for a second. In my 12 years as a lead auditor, I've learned a hard truth. Most companies fail their audits while working very hard to pass them. Why? Because they are treating the symptoms but ignoring the disease. You see, a missing signature is rarely just a mistake. It is usually a symptom of a broken process deep inside your organization. If you just patch the symptom with a quick fix, you might survive the audit, but the disease will stay and it will eventually kill your quality culture. I'm going to walk you through the 5 most common audit traps I see in real projects. I'm going to show you the symptom, but more importantly, I'm going to diagnose the hidden organizational disease behind it and give you the cure. Trap number 1 is the most common failure in ISO 9001 today. I call it the copy-paste risk register. It looks like compliance on the surface, but it's actually a ticking time bomb. Let me take you back to an audit I did for a large IT services firm. In the morning, I audited a cloud migration project. The project manager handed me his risk register. It listed server downtime and data loss as the top risks. Standard stuff, right? But that afternoon, I audited a completely different department, human resources software. I asked for their risk register, and guess what? It was identical. Same fonts, same top 5 risks, even the typos were the same. A junior auditor might write up the project manager for being lazy, but as a lead auditor, I knew this wasn't a project failure. This was an organizational disease. The organization had failed to define its context, that is clause 4 of ISO 9001. They had created a culture where filling out the template was more important than thinking. They forced every project to use a generic list, effectively banning them from identifying the real risks that could kill their specific project. The project failed the audit, but the root cause was the organization's refusal to let teams think for themselves. Trap number 2 is what I call the resource mirage. This is where the organization says quality is our priority, but their action says speed is our god. I was auditing a software development team last year. Their process was clear. Every line of code must be peer-reviewed. But when I looked at the evidence for the last 3 sprints, 0 reviews. The team had just stopped doing them. I asked the project lead why. He didn't make excuses. He just said, management cut our delivery window by 4 weeks. We simply didn't have time to code and review. We had to choose. This is the trap. The project team didn't fail. Leadership Clause 5 of ISO 9001 failed. Clause 7.1 requires the organization to provide the resources needed to achieve conformity. You cannot demand ISO 9001 quality while starving the team of the time needed to deliver it. In this case, the project was just a mirror reflecting the organization's hypocrisy. If you are a quality manager watching this, go check your projects. If they are skipping steps, don't blame them. Ask if you have given them the time to actually do the work. Trap number 3 is the phantom procedure. This creates the biggest gap between what you say you do and what you actually do. I audited a SaaS project where the procedure said step 1 log ticket, step 2 update RTM, and step 3 get cab approval. But the team was deploying updates 5 times a day. When I asked the tech lead about the approvals, he laughed. The change board meets once a week. If we waited for them, we'd be out of business. An auditor writes a non-conformance for failure to follow procedure. But I wrote the finding against clause 7.5, that is documented information. The disease here is that you have a waterfall manual trying to control an agile team. The documentation exists for the auditor, not the user. If the process doesn't match the speed of the work, the process is wrong, not the team. Trap number 4 is the time traveler's evidence. You know this one, right? It's when records are created after the work is done, just to satisfy the auditor. I once asked a project manager for the meeting minutes from 3 months ago. He said, give me an hour, let me fetch it. I said, okay. When he handed them to me, the ink was literally still wet, or digitally speaking, the date created metadata was from 10 minutes ago. He wasn't a liar, he was terrified. This is an organizational disease of fear. The organization valued clean records more than real control. If your teams are backfilling evidence, you don't have a quality system. You have a theater production, and as an auditor, I'm not buying a ticket. Finally, trap number 5, the softball internal audit. This is the silent killer. It's when your internal audits find nothing, but the external auditor finds everything. I audited a project that had scored 100% on its internal audit just 2 weeks prior, but I found 5 major non-conformances in the first hour itself. Why? Because the internal auditor treated the audit as a checkbox exercise. The disease here is management review as part of clause 9. Management didn't want bad news, so the internal auditors stopped looking for it. If you aren't finding problems internally, you aren't perfect, you are blind. And here's the harsh truth. You can fire that project manager, you can retrain your team, you can scream about deadlines, but if you don't cure the organizational disease, these traps will keep snapping shut on every single project you run. You need to stop looking at the symptoms and start fixing the system. Specifically the ISO 9001 clauses we just talked about. I have created a deep dive series that breaks down exactly how to fix these clauses so you pass your next audit without the panic. Click the playlist here to start the cure. I'll see you in the next video.